Okay guys, so we're going to start by finishing up our test 1 review. And we're going to start with problem number 7. A function is defined by f of x equals 2x plus 3. If the domain of this function is from -2 to 2, what is the maximum value of the range? So some keywords right here: maximum. That means the biggest. We're looking for the biggest number in our range. And in this case, instead of having x and y, we have x and f of x. People like to use f of x instead of y a lot. But instead of making myself this table, which I could, I'm just going to get my calculator, and I'm going to put my equation in y equals. My equation is 2x plus 3 second graph. I am looking at the x's from -2 to 2 because that's what my problem tells me. My domain is from -2 to 2. And I'm looking for the biggest value in the range, which I'm going to pretend is y even though they have f of x. And the biggest number that I have between -2 and 2 is 7. When x is 2, when I plug in a 2, I get out a 7. 7 is bigger than 5, 3, 1, and -1. So my answer has to be B. Okay, number 8. This graph shows the student's rate for learning new words over 5 days. Which statement best describes the student's learning rate? Okay, so these are my days, and these are the number of words learned. So just by looking at this graph, I can see that over the course of the first day, this person learned a lot of words, and over the next between the next 2 and 3 days, this person learned even more words. But after about 3 days, they didn't learn any new words. That kind of like stayed the same. Maybe they stopped studying, or maybe they stopped trying to learn. So using that, let's look at this. I'm looking at which statement best describes the student's learning rate. It increased for the first 3 days. Yeah, it is going up for the first 3 days. 1, 2, 3. Then remain the same. Yep, it did remain the same for after 3 days. It decreased for the first 3 days. Nope. They're learning new words. That's why this is going up. So that doesn't make any sense. It remained the same for the first 3 days. Nope. This is going up. If it remained the same for 3 days, we would have a flat line here. It remained the same for the first 3 days. Nope. Again, this person learned new words over the course of the first 3 days. So our answer has to be F. Mr. Wilson asked his class to sketch a graph that would represent the following activity. Start 3 meters away from me and slowly walk away for 8 seconds. Then stand still for 3 seconds and walk quickly towards me for 4 seconds. Okay, so we're going to break this up by parts. This person had to start 3 meters away. Our graph, this is time, and this is distance from Mr. Wilson. So this person had to start 3 meters away from Mr. Wilson. Let's count. 1, 2, 3. This person is starting 3 meters away. 1, 2, 3, 4. This person is not starting 3 meters away. 1, 2, and 3. This person is starting 3 meters away. Start 3 meters away from me and slowly walk away for 8 seconds. If we're walking away from Mr. Wilson, that means that our distance between us and Mr. Wilson is increasing, and it has to increase for 8 seconds. This person's distance is increasing, but it is increasing over 1, 2, and 3 seconds, not 8 seconds, which is what we wanted, 8 seconds. So A is not it. This person is walking away for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 seconds. So our answer has to be F. The cost C of renting a crane can be expressed by this equation, where H is the number of hours the crane is rented. Which statement is true based on the information given? Okay, so this one's a little bit tricky because we're given an equation and we just kind of had to analyze each one of our answer choices. F. The crane cannot be rented for more than 3 weeks. Nope. There's nothing in the problem that would suggest that we cannot rent a crane for 3 weeks. The cost of this crane for 2 complete days is $9,300. Here we have an equation. C equals 2,100 plus 150 times H. C is our cost, and H is the number of hours the crane is rented. If we rent a crane for 2 days, that means that we're renting this crane for 48 hours. Then to figure out the cost, we would have to plug in 48 for H, which is hours. And if we do that, let's put that in our calculator. I'm just gonna type it in exactly as I wrote it. 2,100 plus 150 times, parentheses 48 gives me 9,300. And our answer choice said, the cost of this crane for 2 complete days is 9,300, which is true. 11. Which is always the correct conclusion about the quantities in this function? Y equals 4x plus y equals x plus 4. So before we do anything, the best way to analyze this is by looking at a graph, at a table. For any number that we put in for x, I'm just going to say 1, 2, 3, and 4. My corresponding y would be, and I'm too lazy to do this by hand, even though it would be really easy to do by hand. I'm going to put this in my calculator, x plus 4. Second graph, if I plug in a 1 in this table, I get out 5. And my calculator disappeared. And if I plug in a 2 in this equation, as you can see from right here, if I plug in a 2 for x, I get out a 6. If I plug in 3, I get out 7. 4, I get out 8. So 6, 7, and 8. And so now that we kind of have an idea of what's going on, let's look at our answer choices. The variable x is always 4 more than y. So here we have 1 and y is 5. Is x 4 more than 1? Nope. Y is 4 more than x. When the value x is negative, the value y is also negative. Well, in our table, we actually did not have any negatives. Let's go to our calculator. When our x is negative, is the value over y also negative? Nope. Whenever x is negative 2, whenever we plug in a negative 2 for our x, we get out a positive 2 for our y. So that's not true. The variable y is always greater than x. Is that true? Yeah, it looks like it. But just to confirm, let's look at also our negatives. And yes, we can see very clearly that our y value is always going to be greater than our x value. And as the value of x increases, the value of y decreases. Well, no. The x's are getting bigger, and so are the y's. As the x's get bigger, the y's get bigger. So B is definitely not in. C has to be our answer. Number 12. The graph below shows John's weekly earnings as a function of his total weekly merchandise sales. Which is the closest to John's total earnings if he sells $650 of merchandise in 1 week? So we are going to begin by by making ourselves a table. This would be our x, this is our y, and our x in this case represents sales, right? Total weekly sales. Our y represents the earnings, and I just realized this table's not going to be big enough. Okay, I'm going to have to scroll down. When he makes 0 sales, which is right here, when his sales are 0, his earnings are 120. When his sales are, 100, his earnings, when his sales are 100, his earnings are 140. When his sales are 200, his earnings are 160. When his sales are 300, his earnings are 180. So 300 and 180. And just to save time, the other numbers are when his sales are 400, his earnings are 200. And when his sales are 500, his earnings are 220. I'm trying to find, if he sells $650 of merchandise in 1 week, what are his earnings? So I'm going to extend my table all the way to 650. I can see right here that these are increasing by 100. And on the other side, every time this increases by 100, the other side increases by 20. Right, to get from 120 to 140, we have to add 20, and so forth. So let's say that I add 100 on this side to get to 600. And then on the other side, I would have to add 20, which would give me 240. If I add 100 again to get to 700, I would have to add 20 again to get to 260. I'm looking at 650, which is in between these two numbers. And the number that's in between 240 and 260 would obviously have to be 250. So looking at my answer choices, the answer is not F. 220 corresponds with 500. When he has sales of 500, his earnings are 220. It is not 240 because that's whenever he has sales of 600, he makes 240. So it's definitely not G. 8, we said was our answer. But if you look at J, 260 corresponds with sales of 700. So that's definitely not it. So this problem was very easy. It became easy once you made your table. So if you didn't make your table, that's probably why you got this one wrong. The last problem, I think we talked about this one in class. Based on this table, what is the total number of dishes that we will have washed when the dishwasher is used 9 times? But because we are running out of time, I'm just going to not go over this problem. Finish up your corrections and then get ready to do the redo test on Schoology.